If any insurgents were foolish enough to stand and fight, we brought tanks and all the ammo we could carry. We were ready to recreate the Battle of Fallujah. We envisioned a last stand, us versus them, a reckoning where they would stand and fight. Something strange happened. When we swept the city, not a single shot was fired. The overwhelming firepower we flaunted was enough to dissuade all of the fighters in the city. They decided to either flee the city or put down their arms for the foreseeable future. Though we sharpened our K-bars and carried extra grenades, the mother of all missions turned into an exhaustive census-taking operation. We still searched houses for contraband, of which we found plenty, but our primary purpose became taking an accurate census of the city's population. Wow. It's almost like when you have commanders that know what the fuck they're doing, the United States doesn't get embarrassed in foreign fucking sandboxes. No less wasteful, no less tragic. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's. Not supporters, not detractors, not friends, not foes, and certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat, girthy dose of the truth cock. It's that time again, boys and girls. Welcome to the Sunday sermon. Oh, let's try that again. Little hiccup. Nothing major. My mood's a little off, but we're going to bring it home, guys. Everybody in for the drum roll. Where's my fire? Yes, sir. Little gut stomper rock and roll to kick it off as per usual. The band Red Desert out of the smoldering ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am two-fisted on the energy consumption today. I got some little of my own cold brew with a little bit of extra in it. Just got through with a really hard workout out in the garage gym. Hopefully you guys, one of these days, some of you guys make it up here to visit. Hop out into the garage and hit some iron together. My buddy Aaron back on board, all healed up from his previous injury. Things like that happen when you're flipping a 1,000-pound tractor tire. Can't be helped. A lot of good stuff to cover, man. Again, let me just go ahead and get this one right out of the starting gate. Freaks of a Feather. Available on Amazon. Published by the Late Top Press right here out of Spokane, Washington. A Marine Grunt's combat memoir. More poignant and more appropriate to be getting into the words of somebody that has lived it, particularly with what we got going on this week. And we're gonna get into that as the program goes on. Bet your fucking ass we are. I don't even know where to begin, man. I don't even know where to begin. So wasteful, so fucking tragic. But here we are in another sandbox war that, in all fairness, we never should have been in the first fucking place. So this is one of those days where there's just not enough fuck yous to go around. But I'm going to hand them out liberally just the same. Make sure they get evenly distributed, in accordance with the socialist principles espoused by those who have pulled us to this point of national disgrace and embarrassment. What a fucking world, man. What a world. What a week in this fucking world. Anyway, guys, a little bit of Red Desert to kick it off. I appreciate everybody being here. Everybody showing up. Who we got? Oh, look at that. All right, man. We got Chris Reyes, Mr. Right. What's going on, man? We got Brother Joel. We got Brother Steve Jetton on board. Emmy, of course, is here. Wayne made it in for the live show this week. Cool, right on. A few more people hopefully going to be joining us. Some people might still be looking for us over on Facebook right now. That suspension, not only am I suspended from Facebook general activity for a month, but I just went and looked at the order, and I'm sure this was purely. I'm sure this was purely coincidental. I'm sure it wasn't, pointed or anything, but Apparently, I'm banned from general interaction on Facebook for a month, but I'm banned from Facebook Live for 2 months. Yeah. Another one they kind of just threw in at the last minute, just as a happy hi-ho, go fuck yourself, Reverend. It's okay. We got other formats. We got people that are watching us here on YouTube. We got a couple of people who are watching on Twitter as well. That Periscope feed going live over on Twitter, and that's doing a live cast, and you can catch the replay as well. Hopefully, what I would like to get done is move over to BitChute and Rumble. A couple of formats that are still in the growth process where I've got a chance to get in more or less on the ground level and build a devoted audience over there. But I appreciate every one of you guys who've stuck with me so far. Let me get these things out of the way. A couple of sponsor shout outs. First of all, to Roman and his lovely wife, and of course to all the beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Beautiful portraits of beautiful naked women, punctuated with testosterone driven commentary. What's not to like? So there's that. And I appreciate, again, besides being a sponsor of the program, Roman is one of my oldest and dearest friends. So go check them out over at opiumtales.com. And of course, my Tellison brothers, my Viking brothers from right here in Spokane, Washington. Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. Get some, motherfuckers. Fantastic gentlemen. They had the Viking Longship back out and setting up shop at, I think it's American Gun and Pawn, just down Sprague from here. They do that on Thursdays. Go get some, man. Period. End of statement. They're back out with the Viking Longship, and you got to check it out. And of course, one of the two brothers, Casey, is not only a Marine combat veteran, but he is the author of this little tome, Freaks of a Feather, a Marine grunt's memoir. Available on Amazon right now, and also it's published by Latop Press right out of here in Spokane, Washington, right here in the inland Northwest. It is a fascinating, riveting read, and very necessary, particularly in this day and age. Before I go off on on the main reason why these kind of things are necessary for contemporary culture, we're gonna go to the Ryan's Rabbit Hole segment. But I want you to just kind of bookmark pink, and we're going to come back to the importance of the perspective of grunts here in just a second. We're going to dash out and, of course, do the ever popular segment, Ryan's Rabbit Hole, Viva Referencia Obscura. Yes. Thank you. Brother Ryan Jenkins with another great one, man, coming up here. He always manages to pull some obscure stuff that's going to take you off the beaten path and down some rabbit holes. Maybe some you will find more fascinating than others, but he's going to make you delve a little deeper. A lot of the guys, come on, if you're my friend, you're probably somewhat into the obscure and the esoteric and the conspiratorial and all of those other, that's like, I think that's all three of my college words. But Ryan will take you in some directions, man. He even makes me work for it. But anyway, this week's rabbit hole is going to be on a Russian by the name of Anatoly Bruchkov. He is the head of the, now you ready for this one, geocryology department at the university at Moscow State University, because Russia. Yes, because Russia. But here is the kicker. Mr. Bruchkov, he found a microorganism, a bacteria in particular, a particular bacillus that was it's referred to as Bacillus F, and it was pulled out of like fucking 20,000-year-old fucking permafrost. But this guy, after doing a couple of minor clinical studies and deciding that this could have potential to alter one's DNA and actually achieve immortality. No, I'm not making this up. Go down the rabbit hole yourself and check it out. Again, you don't have to believe everything. You don't have to take it, but roll it around, take a little poke into the bread oven, see what rises, run it up the flagpole, see if your intellect salutes. It's always fascinating shit. But this guy found things in the DNA of this particular bacillus that he felt would help humans to achieve stronger immune systems, longer lives, and eventually immortality. And again, whether or not you buy it, go and look at the research. The example that I always give is I don't necessarily buy that the real Paul McCartney died in a car accident in 1965. I don't necessarily buy that, but I've seen enough stuff where people definitely can make a good case for it. I'm not saying I necessarily believe it, but I've seen people make really good cases for it. And Anatoly Bruchkov is one of those guys. He makes a really good case. He makes a really good case for the hypotheses that he presents, and it's worth going down that rabbit hole, roll it around, see what comes up. But Anatoly Bruchkov, he is the head of the geocryology department at Moscow State University, researching bacillus pulled out of the permafrost to help us achieve immortality. Definitely worth a look, and that is going to be Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. So now we're going to get back into the importance of why we need more grunts like my dear friend and brother, Casey Tellison, how we need to be listening to more of their fucking perspectives. I want to make a couple of things abundantly clear on this Afghanistan thing, lest ye think that I have completely lost my mind. First of all, shout out to my buddy Moses over in Montana, Moses Baxter, who's holding it down for me over on Facebook. He threw something out earlier, and I kind of had to check him. I sort of like threw him a little text message, just like, buddy, give me a call. We didn't talk long, because I had the lift, but I am not, for the record, of the opinion that all of the equipment that we left behind over there was part of some grand conspiracy to arm the Taliban. Okay. I don't believe that. Brother Jeff Truitt, who also runs Treasure Monk on YouTube. He runs the Treasure Monk channel on YouTube, and worth checking out. He's done Trigger Time over there in the sandbox. Worked as a medical officer for a private military contractor over there. And he's got some stories as well. But he was one of the first people to pop up and go, hey, man, you need to check your boy Mo. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I really don't even think that's what Mo intended. Again, we haven't had the conversation. But I don't believe that us leaving all that equipment behind was a specific effort to arm the Taliban. That's just how it fucking worked out. Not as much in the sense of what the Hillary Clinton State Department under President Obama did in Syria, where they deliberately armed moderates, because moderates exist in that culture and that region. We did specifically arm them there. And when we did pull out there, again, wasn't intentional, but they wound up, the Jihad Johnnies wound up with a shitload of United States military equipment. If we're dealing strictly with Afghanistan, this is not without precedent. Okay. The Afghans defeated the British. They essentially fought the Russians with British rifles, and then whatever they could get off of the fallen Soviets. And of course, the stuff that we threw to them, like, Stinger missiles and things like that, because that never has a bad ending. Helping out Stone Age savages in a fucking sandbox halfway across the world, that never ends badly. I mean, particularly with the culture of radical Islam, because they're just a misunderstood religion of peace. In any case, the result is the same, whether or not we did it intentionally. What we specifically forgot, or what we were specifically attempting to do, rather, was arm the Afghan military. And that's why we left all this equipment behind, allegedly for them. The results were entirely predictable, and then some. That these weapons and this equipment were going to fall into the hands of the most radical of the Jihad Johnnies, because every time there was a power vacuum in that fucking region, every time there was a power vacuum in the Arab world, it's Jihad Johnny and the boys that wind up filling in the space, which makes it even more inexcusable, because we've seen this time and time again. Saddam Hussein was a horrible person, horrible dictator, brutal motherfucker, but he was primarily secular and kept the jihad Johnnies on their heels. Once we removed him, we paved the way for the rise of ISIS. And then, almost as if it were by design, we armed moderates in Syria under Obama and the Hillary Clinton State Department. Those moderates turned out to be working with, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, and any other number of jihad Johnny organizations. And they wound up with a shitload of American equipment. Basically, in Afghanistan in particular, this is just history repeating itself. They defeated the British. They fought the Russians with British weapons. They fought us with Russian weapons. And boy, are they going to have some mean weapons for the next empire that decides to fuck up over there. My prediction is China, but we'll see how that rolls. Because I think China is going to do the diplomatically smarter thing and play ball with them. But it is absolutely abhorrent what the fuck we have going on over there. This from the Associated Press. Taliban sweep into Afghan capital after government collapses. Do you realize that we've been there for 20 plus fucking years now? 20 years we have been there. 20 years. Ponder that shit. 20 years. Over $3 trillion of our treasure and over 2,500 lives of our blood, of our best and brightest we spent. And they collapsed not in the 90 days that was originally predicted, but in less than a week. In less than a fucking week. Well, what did our fine president have to say about that, huh? What did our fine president have to say about that? Well, right now, according to the New York Times, those right-wing anti-Biden lunatics at the checks notes New York Times are saying that the United States is asking the Taliban to spare its embassy in the coming fight for Kabul. We're making requests of these motherfuckers. This was from 3 days ago. We were making requests. Please play nice. We're pulling out, and we'd really appreciate if you Stone Age goat fucking savages that cut the heads off of homosexuals and stone your own wives to death if they disrespect you. We'd really, really appreciate it if you played fucking nice and didn't seize our embassy. How fucking thoughtful. How fucking thoughtful. The United States military has been spending time on critical race theory, on gender awareness, flying BLM and rainbow flags over our fucking embassies. And great, dude, if this makes you feel better. But in the meantime, there are people who want to destroy us. There are people who want to kill us. And I'm saving some of this wrath for the Republicans, all right? Because any of you who have known me for any length of time know the 8 solid years that I raged against the excesses of the Bush administration. Not only on a civil liberties front in the wake of 9/11, but in our foreign entanglements. In getting us involved in Iraq and Afghanistan. No end in sight. Oh, but it won't be like Vietnam. Oh, but it won't be another quagmire like Vietnam turned into. Famous last fucking words. We never should have been there in the first place. And we definitely needed to get the fuck out. But there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. A drawdown is the way to do it. A drawdown while maintaining command presence, because again, we are dealing with that part of the world. We are dealing with that region. We are dealing with that ethnicity. We are dealing with that culture. And what are the only 3 things that they understand? I'll wait for somebody to pop them up in the comments because you already know. Only 3 things that culture, that ethnicity, that region of the world understands. What are those 3 things? What are those 3 things? We all know it. Say it with me, boys and girls. Fear, pain, and force. And we maintained command presence on none of those things during the drawdown. We just said, hey, fuck it. Now, here's the thing. Darth Cheeto, when he was in office, he quite correctly said, we need to get the fuck out of there. He put a game plan together. He put deals together. He had a timetable. He had a withdrawal plan. Now, as far as leaving that stuff behind, all the equipment, all the weapons, all the high-end stuff that your tax dollars pay for, by the way, just a little righteous indignation on that front. Just so you know, boys and girls, I am not of the opinion that any of that should have been left behind. For the stability of the Afghan government, for the burgeoning Jeffersonian democracy that we were trying to install there, the same way that we tried in Iraq. These people are not built for it. I give 2 flying fucks at 6 rolling donuts about anyone in Afghanistan. We owe them nothing. Nothing. Now, that's a harsh reality to get your head around, but that's the fucking facts, boys and girls. That's the facts. We don't owe them a goddamn thing. Nothing. We should have had that timetable to pull them the fuck out. And if the people wanted to fight, if the people wanted to resist the Taliban, if the actual people wanted to resist the Taliban, I mean, what the fuck? They resisted the British. They resisted the Russians. And now they've resisted us. If they really wanted the Taliban out of there, the Taliban, wait for it, would be fucking out of there. But they don't. They're one and the same. These people are not like us. Cultural equivalency is a brutal, horrendous lie. And in the process of failing to acknowledge that lie, we wasted $3 trillion and in excess of 2,000 American lives. Did we need to hit Afghanistan back after 9/11? If you believe the official story, and that's where everything was organized, and that's where bin Laden was hiding out, and all of these things, certainly. Go in and clean their fucking clocks. We dropped special operations team after special operations team after special operations team into corner after corner after corner, and we smoke savage after savage after savage and leave him bleeding out in the fucking desert with a goat he was previously fucking lapping his blood from his feet. And then we bail. Because fuck them. That's why. We owe them nothing. And every attempt to install Jeffersonian democracy in that region, with that culture, with that ethnicity, is doomed to failure. Doomed to failure. Because it fails to recognize a very basic fundamental reality. And that basic fundamental reality is they are not like us. They are not like us. They don't want to be like us. They don't understand the world, nor do they see it through the same lens as we do. So anything we do there is doomed to failure. We never should have been in the first place. But if we're going to pull the fuck out, dropping the ball, leaving everything behind, and putting us once again in a position that the United States hasn't been in since, the early to mid 70s. The early to mid 70s. Ain't that something? The early to mid 70s. What did Biden try to tell us? I'll tell you what Biden tried to tell us. In fact, I'll play it for you right now.
Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not.
This is your president.
Because you have the Afghan troops at 300,000, well equipped, as as any army in the world.
With our tax dollars and our weapons and our money, but yeah.
Because you have the Afghan troops at 300,000, well equipped, as as any army in the world, and an air force, against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
It is not inevitable, even though our own intelligence services. Hey, you remember when the orange guy ignored the advice of the intelligence services and everybody said, how dare you? How dare you ignore the advice of the intelligence services? They are beyond. First of all, they're flawed as fuck, and they cherry pick intelligence specifically in terms of globalist and neocon fucking war interests as far as foreign policy is concerned. But conceding for the sake of argument that they are 100% honest and don't have their own fucking agendas, the cadaver in chief, Paw Paw Joe over here, deliberately ignored what they were telling him. And what they were telling him prior to this week was that Kabul would fall inside of 90 days. It took 4. They were telling him, let me restate that it would fall within 90 days, and it took 4. The press conference goes on.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
In fact, they did, and they told them as much.
What is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together.
There's an important point. The Afghan government leadership has to come together. And the minute the Taliban started moving on Kabul, what happened? The president that we installed hopped on the first thing smoking, FTS, and got his ass the fuck out of there, left it behind.
They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place.
The capacity.
And do you see any
but not the will.
This withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling
none whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question.
Not at all comparable. They're not anywhere near as strong as the South Vietnamese or the North Vietnamese or. You got to wonder if it was a faux pas or if he really fucking, if he really just never picked up a history book, even though I believe he was a congressman during Vietnam. No, we're assured that they're not anywhere near as comparable and not anywhere near as capable as the North Vietnamese army and all the brigades that broke down the gates of our embassy in Vietnam. But here we are 4 days later, and they're taking over the embassy. Here we are 4 days later, and even though we were assured that we would not be subjected to images of helicopters lifting people off of a fallen embassy at the last minute, well, he was right about that because the news has done a good job of fucking suppressing it. But they're getting out. You can find the photos. You can find the videos. They're evacuating our personnel. Any of my Vietnam veteran buddies out there or people that are close to Vietnam veteran buddies know that the first question your Vietnam veteran buddies had when they woke up and heard this shit is who controls the airport? And right now, that's a toss-up. The Kabul airport is taking fire and our personnel have not yet been fully evacuated. We're not even talking about the interpreters. We're not even talking about the villagers that assisted us over there, all of whom are going to be brutally raped and killed by the Taliban once we're out. We're not talking about evacuating them. I'm talking about United States personnel who are still on the fucking ground. They can't leave. This is a fucking disaster. And where is our cadaver in chief in the middle of all of this? Where is he? He's at Camp David on vacation. On vacation. He did his little news conference. The media ran cover for him. And he took off. Now, you and I both know that he's not the one making these calls. He's the figurehead. He's the one that all the grazers look to be making these calls. But he's not the guy. He's not. You have to wonder who is at this point. Neocons, globalists within the establishment, within the defense and the intelligence establishment that are making these fucking calls. And at the end of the day, that means fuck all, because how does it look to the rest of the world? The President of the United States is watching an operation that he owns 100% lock, stock, and barrel. You can't blame this one on the orange fella, you old, decrepit, addled fuck. And he's on vacation. My buddy Moses brought up an interesting point the other day, because he was pretty hacked as well he should be. You can be pissed at the Democrats for mishandling the withdrawal. You can be pissed at the Biden administration, but you have to save a little bit of wrath for the Bush junta that got us into this goddamn quagmire in the first fucking place, and be plenty pissed off at them as well. But here's the common factor. The media ran cover for both. The media ran cover for both. Now, granted, the media was more on the side of the Bush junta with regard to Iraq than they were with Afghanistan. Cherry-picking intelligence. Can't wait for the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud. We have intelligence that they saw weapons of mass destruction. Blah, 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 blah. Well, if we can justify going into Iraq, then we certainly have to justify going into Afghanistan, because that's where the Taliban are, and those were the guys that were hiding bin Laden, and that's where the plot originated for 9/11, blah, 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 blah. The press ran cover for the Bush junta getting us in, and now they are running cover for the Biden administration fucking up getting us out. Are you with me, people? You following me here? Do I need to break out the sock puppets? There's only one guy that they held to account. Only one guy that they didn't run interference for. Only one guy in particular that they looked for even the most specious, fucking non-existent reasons to call into question. And that was Biden's orange predecessor. See, if y'all do about 8 seconds worth of Google searches, you'll find that Trump was the guy that really got the ball rolling, or at least tried to get the ball rolling on getting us out of Afghanistan. And what happened? The media called him a clown, said that it would be a fucking disaster. Nancy Pelosi organized and circled the wagons with her House Democrats, lambasted him through their associates in the mainstream media, tore him to pieces, excoriated the man, and refused to sign anything to initiate the process because it was a horrible idea. Do you want to know what Nancy Pelosi had to say this morning? In the middle of the House being on fire, Nancy said that the president is to be commended for his clarity of statement and purpose and for carrying out the mission in Afghanistan. He's to be commended. I'm sure she'd love to commend him in person, but he's on vacation right now as an embassy falls in a country in which we have wasted $3 trillion and almost 2,500 lives. But the Grazers and the Pollyannas will go on singing his praises because that's what they do. And the media will continue to run interference because that's what they do. And the people on the left who are not ignorant at this point, they can't claim ignorance at this point. They are willingly blind. They have abdicated the responsibility for their own critical thought to people like Brian Stelter and that fucking Maddow guy over on MSNBC. They can't be reasoned with. They are going to continue to run interference. They are going to continue to believe every bit of the narrative that they've been told. Why? Because they're grazers. That's what they do. They're grazers, and it's what they do. So here we are. $3 trillion and almost 2,500 lives later. For any of you who are watching either live or via the replay who have lost people in Afghanistan, for my friends who without a doubt lost people in Afghanistan. My prayers in the interim are with you, that you would find strength and solace for your loss. And my prayers in the long term are that this country can find its spine, its balls, and its brains next time, and inevitably, with the establishment being what it is, with the military-industrial congressional first draft, military-industrial congressional complex that Eisenhower warned us about, there will be a next time. Inevitably, there will be a next time. Unless we have the spine to elect someone who will have the common goddamn sense to keep us out of it. These endless fucking wars for empire, we should never have been involved in the first place. But at the very least, they will have the spine and the balls and the brains that if we have to fucking end these wars, and we do, all of these endless conflicts for empire, all of this empirical projection that we do all over the world, it's got to end. It's not sustainable. But hopefully we'll have the sense to find a leader who has the brains to understand the complexity of the situation and that it is not sustainable. The balls to say, we got to bring the boys home. And then again, the brains to figure out how to do it without a complete fucking debacle like this. General Milley, who just a few weeks ago was lecturing us on the criticality of the crisis that the United States military faced because of racism and extremism in the ranks and white supremacy and this and that. I don't know, but because I'm not a politician and I'm not a military strategist. I mean, I never served, let alone was an officer, but it seems to me like the more pressing issue would be, I don't know, the fucking war we're in and how to get our people out of there without a complete fucking disaster. But that's me. What the fuck do I know? I'm disheartened. I'm disgusted. As much as I knew that we needed to bring everybody home, as much as I'm still in favor to this moment. And if that upsets anybody's delicate sensibilities here, go fuck yourself. We can't keep doing this. We can't. We're not Globocop. We can't keep doing this. We needed to fucking be out of there. Trump was right about that. Biden was right about that. I'm sorry. Biden's handlers were right about that. He was kind of able to read it off the teleprompter that he was right. But the way we went about it, the callousness with which we treated the sacrifice that has been made for this ineptly considered goal, it's disgusting. And it's embarrassed us on the world stage. It's completely embarrassed us on the world stage. And going forward, it's going to take us decades to recover from this. Unless and until we get somebody in that oval with a spine and some balls. This is what it feels like to live in a country in decline, but we're not going to get blackpilled on that shit. We're not. Because I believe we're going to pull it out. It's always darkest before the dawn. Cliche as fuck, isn't it? Okay, how about this? We wouldn't have gotten Reagan if we hadn't had a Carter. Four years of a disastrous Carter administration, embarrassing us all over the place on the world stage, including in the Arab world. I remember another U.S. embassy in question, don't you? Maybe you're not old enough. Look it up, Sparky. But without Carter, we couldn't have gotten Reagan. For all his flaws, don't deify the man, but let's just say that the 8 years that followed the 4 years of Carter were considerably better for everyone involved. People will whine about it, snivel, pick it to pieces. Same way they did for the 4 years of the orange motherfucker. You won't be able to give him credit for anything that he got right. And we'll still seize on everything that he got wrong, whether he actually got it wrong or not. This is the power of media. This is the power of propaganda. This is the power of fear to control minds. We're going to close the show with that. I've got a couple of other things I want to cover real quick. And since we're about 10 minutes into the back side of the show, I have another sip of my cold brew coffee. By the way, all of my Reverends Rangers, my Prophets of Doom, and my Sinner Sisters, if you are not on the cold brew tip, get on it. And I don't mean your store-bought cold brew. I'm not about to come on with a new sponsor or anything like that and start shilling for some company selling the pre-bottled cold brew. But you need to get a little home cold brew set up. I promise you, once you get on that tip, you will never go back. It's more highly concentrated. It tastes better. It doesn't mangle your guts. You know, if you guys are my friends in real life, you know I got some squirrely gut issues owing to bad lifestyle decisions in my younger days. But cold brew doesn't jack up your guts. And there are plenty of, you can look it up for yourself on Amazon, man. Look up home cold brew setup. First one that I bought and I own to this day is the rig that I take with me on the road. It's made by a company called Takea. They're the same guys, oddly enough, that make my thermoflask mug. That isn't why I bought either or. I bought the Takea because I saw it in Best Buy for like $25. I was like, $25 for a cold brew setup? Yeah, fuck it. I'll see how well it works. Works great. You put the grounds in, screw this into the cap, then drop the cap down into your cold water and screw that in and stick it in the refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours and you're done. It's easy, no fuss, no muss. Super concentrated, good coffee. So look into that home cold brew thing. All right. Take a deep breath and kind of de-escalate from the anger of discussing the Taliban situation. Let's get into something that an area that never really upsets me. Let's talk about Antifa, because I always manage to hold it together when talking about the maggot militia. Nope, nothing emotional talking about the maggot militia and everything that they have to fucking offer. So anyway, you guys will remember, and if you don't remember, by the way, you can check any of my videos from last year, and even some of the stuff that I've talked about this year. Antifa are the shock troops. They are the brown shirts. They are the brown shirt Bolsheviks, shall we say. They are the equivalent of the brown shirts for the latest authoritarian regime to come down the pipe, and that is the extreme left. The extreme left has been rioting in the streets and burning our cities for the better part of a year, but they're still not considered extremists. We're not going to waste a lot of time going back down that road and rehashing everything. Anyone who is watching this program is already well aware of the double standard with which the two sides are treated in the media and the glossing over and running interference for that is done by the media as regards the maggot militia known as Antifa. Well, they're all about Black lives. They're all about resistance. They're all about down with, all cops are bastards and the government sucks and you can't force your shit on us until the left is in charge. You see, here's what happened in Los Angeles yesterday. There was a demonstration. It was a demonstration of people who were in opposition to mask mandates and business lockdowns vis-a-vis COVID-19. This seems like a pretty cut and dried kind of thing. You're going to have people who advocate for freedom and just want to be left alone to handle their own fucking affairs. And they're going to come out and they're going to protest the lockdowns, and they're going to protest the lockdowns. They're going to protest the mask mandates, and they're going to make a big lot of noise in the streets. And then they're going to dispatch the LAPD. And the LAPD is going to move in, thumping their riot shields or whatever, and kind of push everybody back. And then Newsom and the lockdown lefties are going to do whatever the fuck they were going to do in the first place. Well, that's how you would expect it to roll. But no, Antifa showed up. Wait a minute. That's a little odd. Antifa isn't really known for being on point with regard to mask mandates and the lockdowns and things like that. Well, they showed up. They showed up with specific intent to harass, assault, and eventually stab the vaccine and lockdown protesters. Yeah, that happened. That happened in real life and in real time. Antifa showed up en masse in favor of the government mask mandates and the government economic lockdowns because it's California. Their team runs the government. Therefore, all cops are not bastards. Therefore, it's right and good and wholesome, and we need to split. Antifa is always looking for a reason to commit violence, usually against people that won't resist, particularly when they've got the force and muscle of a government behind them. This is the nature of leftists. This is the nature of weak, spineless maggots. This is what they do. But the headline coming out of the Los Angeles media said, dueling protests in LA over vaccine mandates lead to stabbing and assaults. That is not what happened. Again, media framing it the way they're going to frame it. It wasn't a dueling protest. These people came out to protest the mask mandates, to protest the lockdowns, and an Antifa mob descended on them. Supporters of mandatory vaccinations, this is from the article, supporters of mandatory vaccinations, which are increasingly being required, gathered 1 p.m. Saturday for a no safe space for fascists rally. Let me read that again. Supporters of mandatory vaccinations gathered for a no safe space for fascists rally, followed 1 hour later by a Choose Freedom March. Choose Freedom March against medical tyranny. Yes. So the supporters of mandatory vaccinations clearly were Antifa. And when you watch the video, they were in full black bloc. Some people actually with Antifa logos on the side of their gear. Again, Antifa is an idea, not an organization. They don't really exist. What kind of right-wing nut job dog whistler would say that Antifa actually exists, man? That's just a fucking, yeah, okay, sorry. Well, we got the whole fucking thing on video. They showed up in black bloc with the words Antifa on their own gear and the Antifa logos on their fucking shields, and they marched into a group of people who were there to protest the lockdowns and the mask mandates. Do you see how this entire thing is coming together now? Do you see how it's coming together, or do I need to break out the dry erase board and the sock puppets? Everybody and their dog is waiting for the sock puppets, and one day we'll probably do that again. We did kind of one of the early sermons. I just sort of popped up and opened with the sock puppet because I've been talking about it so long. Here's the bottom line about what happened. People protested government policies, and Antifa, an allegedly anti-authoritarian, anti-fascist organization, came out to show their support for tyrannical government mandates, forcing people to get jabbed with something that they don't want, forcing people to wear masks whose efficacy has not been proven, and forcing people to shut down their own businesses under penalty of law. We remember what happened last year when Newsom and what is the scumbag who's mayor of Los Angeles, Garcetti came out and said that anybody gathering in groups of 3 or more, they'd shut off their power and water. That is literally, I disagree with the finding, but that was actually found under UN dictates to be a crime against humanity. shutting people's water and power off. Yeah, the UN found that a crime against humanity. But Garcetti got out, little wannabe tyrant, and said, if you are gathering in numbers larger than is allowed under this mandate, we'll shut off your water. We'll shut off your power. That's what these anti-fascist zealots are out there supporting. These lockdowns, these mandates. Do what you're fucking told, because we're in charge now. Antifa should be very fucking grateful. Very grateful. For one thing and one thing only, and that is that we are not what they have painted us to be. Because if we were, and we're getting to that point because everybody's got limits to their patience, and that's exactly where we're at right now. We're at the ragged edges of our fucking limits. If you want to see what violence is, if you want to see us become all of the things that you've been accusing us of from the very beginning of this crisis, keep it up. But once the skull splitting starts, just know that the government is not going to come and save you. The dictatorship that you actively work for as shock troops and brown shirts, they're not going to come save you. They're not. You little maggots should have known your place in the food chain from the very beginning. You are not ready for this fight. That's why you always pick on the defenseless. That's why you beat Andy No into a brain bleed in Portland. A little 5'7" Asian homosexual, $130 soaking wet, and you mob stomped him and beat him into a fucking brain bleed. That is why you maggots chase down a 5'7", 130-pound Kyle Rittenhouse, because you thought he's the tiniest guy in the bunch. He's not going to be the guy to fucking open fire, but you fucking found out, didn't you? Picture that on a much larger scale, you maggots, because it's coming. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. We will take no prisoners, and we will make no fucking apologies. So for all you lockstep leftists that think that this is the way to achieve your goals, you're about to find out. It's about to be very, 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 very clear to the whole fucking lot of you. It's about all the time I'm going to give the maggot militia today. The last thing that I want to touch on is this. A little link. Couple of side rabbit holes that I want you to go down. An article in POZ magazine, POZ magazine, from February the 1st, 1995. Robert Wilner injecting himself with HIV-infected blood to prove that he did not believe, to prove how strong his belief was that HIV wasn't related to AIDS. Peter Duesberg doing a lot of research that basically arrived at the same fucking conclusion. We're told today that we need to do exactly what we're told. We're told to trust the science, and the science keeps shifting. This is not the first time that it might have happened. Those of us who are old enough to remember the early days of the AIDS epidemic, and nobody knew. As you've heard me state before, as you've seen my buddy Moses post on his own page, the early days of this fucking thing, people wanted to deny treatment to homosexual men and to IV drug addicts because they should be made to pay the price for their own bad lifestyle decisions. They're choosing to indulge in IV drug use and sodomy. It's their fault. They need to be denied medical care. Today, what are they saying about the unvaccinated? What are they openly saying about the unvaccinated? But that's not the connection. in the early days of the AIDS epidemic, we were told that it was Epstein-Barr virus. And you couldn't question that. And all of the treatment protocols and all the attempts at treatment protocols were based on the supposition from the high priests of the medical establishment that it was Epstein-Barr. And then it was something else. And then it was something else. And then only through the devout and highly flawed work of a fellow named Gallo and another fellow who we'll get into in a minute, did we finally arrive at the more or less verifiable conclusion that it was the human immunodeficiency virus that was actually creating the problem. But in the meantime, doctors had to play a little game of hopscotch, medical hopscotch, because this is what we found and this is it and this is what we're gearing everything to. Oops, we were wrong. Let's shift gears. Let's go over here. Let's try to fucking fix it. And again, protocol after protocol got shot down. And then somewhere along the line, the late 1980s, there was a drug. There was a drug that got released. Actually, the drug wasn't released. It'd been around for quite some time. In fact, it'd been around so long that it was researched in the 1970s as a cancer treatment drug. Well, a cancer treatment drug. Well, what is the mechanism of operations? Well, they went over it and they thought, hey, that seems like it would be the perfect thing for HIV/AIDS. What about all the clinical trials? We don't have time. It's a public health crisis. We got to rush this shit to market. We got to get it out there. In the meantime, of course, because it's only an emergency approval and we still don't know how this is quite going to work out, we need to insulate the pharmaceutical companies in question from any sort of lawsuits, from any harm that may come for this. But we know it's going to work. Trust us, it's going to work. Seemed like it worked early on. And then a lot of questions started coming out. Because here's the thing about this drug. The drug was called AZT. AZT based on its component parts. It's something Ovidine, something Covidine, whatever. Cannot remember the exact trade name for the chemical, but nicknamed AZT, or colloquially named for business practices, AZT, based on its component chemicals. Here's the thing about AZT. It was researched in the 1970s for use as a cancer treatment drug, and it seemed like the perfect thing for HIV/AIDS. Do you know why it got shot down by the FDA in the 70s when it was researched as a cancer treatment drug? Because it destroys the victim's immune system. Look closely. I'm not even wearing my ball cap today, so don't be looking for a tinfoil hat. Do the research yourself. And sure enough, it did the same thing in AIDS patients eventually. Gave an immediate boost to T4 cells. And then the T4 cell counts plummeted, destroying their immune system, killing untold numbers of gay men that might otherwise have survived. Here's a paragraph from an article in Spin magazine about this fucking specific thing. And what happened when the drug that they insisted was going to work, that they knew was going to work, that it worked in the lab and it was going to work in the real world. Like our CDC director said to us about a month ago about the vaccines. And I quote from the article, when specific questions about the alleged mechanisms of AZT are asked, the answers are long, contradictory, and riddled with unknowns. We don't have the data on that. Sound familiar? Every scientific point raised about the drug is eventually answered with the blanket response, the drug is not perfect, but it's all we have right now. The vaccine doesn't prevent contraction of the disease or spreading the disease or dying from the disease, but it'd be a lot worse if he hadn't taken the jab. Again, sound familiar? about the depletion of T4 cells and other white cells, the article goes on, Lehman says, we don't know why T4 cells go up at first and then go down. That is one of the drug mechanisms that we are trying to understand. We don't know why the vaccinated are having breakthrough infections. We don't know why the vaccinated are still dying of the disease and spreading it to immunocompromised, vulnerable populations. We don't know why. But it's all we got right now, and we're trying to understand it. In the meantime, keep taking the jab. We don't know how AZT kicks T4 cells up and then makes them plummet. But if you're gay and you got AIDS, keep taking your AZT. So wait a minute, Bart. How is this connected? By now, you should have figured out where this is going. The guy who was running the NIAIA at the time, the number one medical bureaucrat from 1984 on, that presided over the debacle that was AZT for the treatment of AIDS. You got it, boys and girls. High priest of the cult of fear, none other than Anthony Fauci. Do your own homework. Follow up on everything I say. I'm not your fucking guru. But here's what I will tell you. Tony Benn, one of the most perfect quotes with regard to something called Operation Fear. There are two ways in which people are controlled. First of all, frighten them and then demoralize them. An educated, healthy, and confident nation is harder to govern. Boy, ain't that a fucking fact. Scare the shit out of them. Terrorize them, demoralize them. That quote goes on, by the way, and I encourage you to look up Tony Benn's work on Project Fear. I encourage you to look it up for yourself, because one of the things that it goes into, one of the things that he says later in that speech is about people get to thinking best just to do what you're told, follow the orders that they give you, and hope everything works out okay. Given that the mechanisms of social control are being implemented yet again in the same way, and now with regard to the safety and efficacy of a particular drug for a particular health crisis, with a cloud of fear looming over our heads, presided over by the same fucking bureaucrat. The one thing we need to get past right now is fear. Whether it's fear of an epidemic that may or may not exist, whether it's fear of how current foreign policy debacles are going to shake out for America on the world stage, whether it's fear of if the controlling system right now is going to try to hang on to power through unconstitutional means once we get through to the midterms. We've got to be fearless. We've got to be fearless going forward. But the one fear that is most important to overcome, particularly right now, is the fear of speaking your mind, speaking the truth, of speaking. Do not let the fear and embarrassment, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of all of the things that they are trying to do right now, stop you from speaking up against them. Because at the end of the day, hiding from a fight is just like hiding from a predatory animal and hoping it's going to eat you last. Eventually, it's going to get around to you. Best to fight while there are still enough of us, while we are still loud enough, strong enough, driven enough, and hopefully fearless enough to take the fight to them. We're not out of this yet. In fact, we're still damn well in it. Start fucking acting like it and start fucking living like it. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. As usual, I'm about 4 minutes over. So appreciate you going. Again, kind of unstructured. I wish I could have laid this out a little bit better, but things are what they are, and we do what we do. So happy at least for that. We're going to go out again on the recommendation of Brother Ryan Jenkins, little clutch, fortunate son. Appreciate you guys being here Sunday after Sunday, making me feel like a little less of a lone voice in the wilderness, man. Appreciate it. If you guys want to throw me some coin or help me out, this little labor of love, man, I'm on PayPal, Venmo, Facebook Pay, Cash App, all the good stuff. If you want to throw me something, but even if you can't, or just don't fucking feel like it, or just want to send me some hate mail or what the fuck ever, if you want to help out the program and other things to spread the word, man, share it with somebody. Share it on your Facebook page, Twitter feed, whatever. Hey, man, this crazy fat old cripple rants and raves for an hour every week. It's a like-minded, a kindred spirit. Maybe you'll dig it, man. Turn people onto the program. But what you can do for yourselves, more importantly than what you can do for me, is live by the 3 prime directives, guys. You already know what they are, guys. What do we try to be? Be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in a world full of darkness, and always, first and foremost, and most important, this is the iron rule, to be that strength in a world full of weakness. It is weakness and fear, like we were just talking about, that keeps us in the position we're in. Time to let your nuts drop, people. Even the ladies. Let your nuts drop. Why not? You might enjoy it. But yeah, man, we do what we can. So thanks for helping me getting the message out. Thanks for putting up with the fat old cripple and coming out and offering the support. You guys mean the world to me. I love you guys, man. Each and every one of you. All my Reverend Rangers, all my prophets of doom, all of my sinner sisters, we will see you here next Sunday. Love each and every one of you, man. Each and every one of you. Thank you all. Peace. Take care of yourselves. Stay solid, stay sharp, and stay strong. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. See you next Sunday, folks. Peace. Yeah, Wayne, tell your brother I said hello too, man. Thank you. See y'all.